All right, guys, today's video is a quick update on the 2Fast 2Furious Skyline. Take a look at it.
Okay, so when the Skyline showed up at the body shop, our main goal was to pre-fit all the parts we were gonna modify and add on to the car, checking the gaps and make sure it pre-fits nice. It's like Daryl said on the other video, it's a nice body kit, but there's always a little bit of imperfection here and there that we gotta fix before applying the paint. So far, on the stage that we're gonna paint the engine bay. We're pretty much waiting for the paint. We're in stage 2, in which we're prepping the car for paint. We did all the modifications, all the prepping. We're pretty much about to shoot sealer. And then from there on, after the sealer, we're going to apply the paint, add the clear, buff it, and then we'll start assembling the car. So far, we haven't had any issues. It's a Skyline. The quarter panels wasn't in a modification. If the car gets crashed, you replace the quarter panel. So it's not considered a modification. It's a repair, we can say. Modification-wise, I can say the body kit. The body kit is not original. It's aftermarket and we're adding it on. So obviously it won't fit like the stock bumper. And obviously brackets here and there, you have to adjust and move and adjustments. That's for me, that's modification. Other than that, everything else is stock. You see the mirrors, the handles, the hood itself. There's no modification, it's all stock. Well, normally we do everything the same way. The Supra, the Fast and Furious Supra, was done this same way. We shot the engine bay, put everything back so we can move it around, and then we assemble the whole car, give it one last look, make sure everything's nice and tight, so that we could just scuff it and get it ready for paint. It's a house of colors, silver, with a little bit of pearl that we're adding. So it is complicated. In some cases, if you're not using the right reducer with the right temperature, you will get some blotchiness. But we're taking everything step by step. So we are avoiding that dilemma. And with my experience, I can say that the Supra is a lot easier than this stage that we're going into. Because the metal flake and the pearl, it's a little bit, on the silvers, is a little bit more complicated. You have to take your time. The back bumper gave me a little bit of work. It was not even out with the quarter panels, but it's the bumper itself. The front bumper was pretty much perfect. A little bit, waviness here and there, but that's why we hand blocked it and went around it and scuffed it. So it looks good. Like I said before, we get it into paint, we're gonna put it back on the car and just make sure that everything's nice and tight so that we don't see any flaw. But so far, the way it looks perfect, it looks good, it's ready for paint. The skirt on the passenger side, it had a little bit more material, so we had to sand it down because it was rubbing a little bit on the door itself. Because we go back again, the gaps do matter.
We have the RB25 DET Neo from the 2Fast 2Furious Skyline recreation that we are starting. There has been a change of plans. We are now going with an RB26 DETT twin turbo setup on this RB25. It probably hasn't been talked about in a long time because this used to be a thing on the forums way back in the early 2000s where people were pulling stock twins off of an RB26 and putting them on their RB25s. And one of the things that you do need to do to make this work with the stock manifolds and the stock twins is you actually need to figure out how to reflange cylinders 3 and 5 because the flange bolt pattern is rotated 90 degrees. All new modern aftermarket exhaust manifolds already come drilled and flanged for all cylinder heads. So it'll fit a 20, a 25, and a 26. So this hole needs to be over there. That upper hole needs to be on this stud that you see right here. We have a fix for that. We're gonna get into that in a little bit, but for now we're gonna go ahead and drill out the frontmost hole for the manifold so that way it mocks up and fits. I'm gonna go ahead and snug it on so we can go ahead and pressure wash and clean this engine before we get to the rest of the turbo mounting and the timing belt water pump setup. The main reason we're really doing this is because it actually saves a ton of money overall in the project as a whole. I don't need that really expensive single turbo manifold. I don't need the brand new Garrett G3770. I don't need the TurboSmart 50 mil wastegate. We don't need a custom downpipe. We don't need to switch the trigger system to a new smart trigger to run a Link ECU anymore. We are actually gonna be partnering a lot with Apexy USA on this. So we get to keep the stock cam angle sensor and run an Apexy Power FC. Apexy also offers a downpipe that matches to the stock turbo elbows. We're gonna be running that system with a mid pipe from them. I can downsize the injectors now. So the other injectors that cost, I don't know, it's almost 200 bucks an injector for the 1300 cc's are now about $100 an injector to run 1000 cc's. So that way there's room for growth, but we don't need that exponential amount of room to make 700 horsepower, which also means we don't need to run dual fuel pumps in the stock gas tank. We get to run a single 450 fuel pump. So it's upgradable and good to run a single 450 up to about 500 wheel horsepower on E85, but this is only gonna be on pump gas and 100 octane. We aren't gonna make a tune for 100 octane, but it has the potential to be there. So there is room for growth, and we can push the boost a little bit more on the stock twins from this R33 setup that we got. But yeah, those are probably gonna cap out at around 15 PSI, and the power that we get is the power that we get. This isn't a power setup per se, like as opposed to the Supra where we're like, hey, we wanna make power and just kill it on the setup. We're making this look as correct as possible. We got an RB26 front timing cover. We have RB26 OEM valve covers that are going on this. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of upgrades that we haven't even began to show yet. We need to show the intake manifold. This is the first look at the twin turbo setup that we're gonna be running. And then after I do timing belt and water pump, we're gonna go ahead and mock up the valve covers and show all of that. But first things first, drill these out, mount them, pressure wash the engine, and get to the service. On the RB25 DT Neo motor specifically, it actually has essentially a proprietary water pump. It is fairly expensive. Retail on that water pump is $495. It's crazy. You buy a standard RB26, older generation RB25 water pump, even the N1 water pump, it's almost half the difference between this water pump and the RB26 water pump, which is literally just one hole different. You can just go forward and put the RB26 N1 water pump on this, but you will have one mounting hole without a bolt. I did not want to do that with this setup. I wanted it to just be completely bolt on as original as possible in terms of the water pump and timing belt components. So we opted to do the OEM water pump.
Okay, so we've got so much has been happening in the last week and a half. As you know, doing cars like this, there's a lot of work and lots of different steps. The last you guys saw of this, we were removing all of the old GTT panels, and we've now retrofitted those new GTR panels to the car. We're over here at our body shop, and the car has been here for the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Joe has been meticulously working on all of the little detail work that goes into perfecting the final fitment of the quarters. That has been done. The entire transformation from GTT to GTR has been completed. As you can see, it is now wearing its new GTR front fenders. It's wearing its GTR rear quarters. All of the final welds have been completed. All of the seam seal work has been done. All the final adjustments prior to that have been done. We have absolutely stunning body fitment and panel fitment, which is really important to me. For the end product, it's just going to really showcase the detail work that goes into, you know, perfecting this kind of transformation. So the House of Colors Platinum Pearl metal flake has already been applied to the engine bay. If you recall, this car had some minor rust issues on the strut towers, as so many of these GTTs and GTRs have. We sent that over to Richard, and Richard did just an amazing repair job on the strut towers. We have since gone in and cleaned those up. We seam sealed all of the repair work, and the finished product, man, it just looks amazing. I am just really happy with the way the engine bay looks. So we kind of pre-fit the bumper. The fenders aren't completely bolted down yet. The front fenders are just kind of sitting there. The gaps are a little tight on the bottoms. Again, once they're bolted into final location. We've had them already pre-aligned. Joe wanted to actually have the total car assembled so that he could do his final sealer application on it. The next step moving forward is going to be doing final block, just flattening the body, finding all of its highs and lows. And fortunately, this car was pretty good to begin with, so there's not going to be a lot of body work needed on this car, but we are going to flatten it a few more times before we apply its final paint. The bottom of the hood has already been painted with its beautiful House of Color paint. He's just doing some final repair work, cleaning up the skirts a little bit more, and the rear bumper is right here, and he's just kind of doing final block and prep for that. Now for all the heavy blocking work and the perfecting the body, even more than it is already. You guys are going to get to enjoy this in this video. I, unfortunately, and all of us have to wait. So I cannot wait to see what this thing's going to look like in its absolutely beautiful platinum pearl finish. And especially once all those graphics are fitted, this thing is going to look stunning. And don't forget, all new moldings are getting put on this car. All new quarter windows, front rubbers. Everything that's rubber is going to get replaced with new stuff. It's going to look like a brand new car. Headlights, going to have brand new covers on them. We talked about that in an earlier video. So enjoy this, guys.
All right, so you want to twin turbo your RB25 DET. These are some of the steps you're gonna need to take care of first to get all this fitted. Step 1, get free twin turbos from your friend's RB26. The majority of people go single turbo, so somebody's gonna have a set of their stock twins just laying on the floor, taking up space, and that's how we got this set up. Step 2, you need to figure out on runner 3 and 5 how you want to handle the difference in the flange. The flange on the RB25 is in one direction, on the RB26 is in a completely opposite direction on cylinders 3 and 5. So you can cut and flip the flange, but the port will be in kind of a different location, or you can do what we did and makeshift some bosses, weld them to the cast manifold, and now you have a secondary location to bolt them onto the head. Step 3, acquire all the lines you think you're gonna need from the stock setup, because for the most part, you will be able to use all of the factory lines, buy an aftermarket line kit, and make things work and tee it all together so that way it works with your RB25. The factory RB26 tees in all the lines in that giant water block up here, and it actually tees in the oil pressure for the feed of the turbos at the block as well. You do need to makeshift a secondary drain setup. The RB25 Neo does not have that oil line that does the drain back from the head, so we use that as our second drain point on this front turbo setup, and the rear turbo uses the factory oil drain. All right, step 3 to convert your RB25 DET to a DETT. Acquire the stock intercooler piping and everything so that way the front and rear turbos can actually link up together before it goes into a single pipe and off to your intercooler. Step 4, figure out your water lines. You have to tee the majority of them just like they are in the RB26. We also need to do that for this RB25. We acquired the factory rear water block tee, and buying a new replacement line kit for factory twin turbo T25s from an RB26 gives us a majority of the other lines that we need to put on. There are a couple lines you do need to make yourself, which is this water line that goes to the back into the thermostat side of the block needs to be made yourself. You need to tee it up together, wrap it up around the block, and tee back into where the thermostat housing is, and then you get your other water line finished. If you're doing a twin turbo setup on your RB25, the biggest thing you're gonna wanna look out for, and the most annoying part of this whole project, is actually reversing those flanges. The intercooler piping and everything really lines up. You just need to mock up that final hose for this 45-degree angle from upper outlet to upper outlet. But like I said, the most annoying part is really gonna be the flanges and welding onto your stock old cast manifolds. The lines and all the other items is just typical DIY make your own lines type of setup. Like if you've done fuel lines or oil cooler lines previously, this isn't any different. Again, most annoying part, the flanges on the head. So you want to put CTSV brakes on your R34 GTT or GTR Skyline. Here's some of the things you need to look out for that they're not telling you in those instruction manuals. Everything that they sell is specifically for S14 and S15s only. Those knuckles actually have a smaller drilled out hole, which doesn't equate to what's on an R34 Skyline. On an S14, S15, you have a 12mm hole in the knuckle that mounts through the brake caliper. They send you a drill and a tap to tap that hole out to an M14 by 2.0. On an R34 Skyline, it's already drilled out to a M14 size hole, so you can't tap it to an M14 by 2.0. Their suggestion essentially is to drill it out one size up to an M16 and then tap it accordingly, get new hardware and such. So we didn't really want to drill the hole out that much, so we kind of came up with a makeshift solution to just make it work. All these kits that are available, it's not a properly engineered solution on how to make a perfect brake kit. They're grabbing an off-the-shelf caliper from another car, rotor from another car that just happens to have the correct hat depth, and the diameter that they're suggesting for this caliper size when you're doing the 6-piston front setup like this CTSV caliper. They're just trying to figure out what parts will work. It's not engineered perfectly, like I said, so there are some things that you need to do to the caliper to make sure that it fits accordingly. One of the biggest things is, instead of drilling out the knuckle to a bigger hole and then slotting it, we decided to put the bolt through the knuckle in the opposite direction so it still holds it with a nut and bolt and a nylock. It's properly fastened. Because of that, you then need to modify and slot out the 6-piston caliper as you see here. Again, not properly engineered. So instead of slotting it, you just drilled it bigger.
Bigger on both.
Okay,
on this and on this.
But not here.
No, because I want
That's what I'm talking about, is here.
Oh, because I want to have a point
Right.
of where it doesn't go anywhere.
What I was talking about was here, that we didn't want to drill the knuckle out to 16 here because this, remember?
But why would you have to drill to 16 there?
That's what the guy was saying to do.
I think it's here.
Well, we
this
did
one.
it here because you wanted to slide it
I think
outward.
he meant that one.
No, the knuckle. He just said drill it to 16.
Both. Because if I drill this to 16, it closes, and then
Right,
when
then
it's
you have
really
to shave the caliper.
It rotates in here, right? But if I put this one more out, which it was already out,
Right.
it'll close here. That's why I didn't do it.
Okay.
But also because I want to point that it doesn't
Stock.
move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. So a little clarification here. The bottom hole of the knuckle stays as an M14, so that way that's his most rigid point. The upper hole on the knuckle is modified to be slightly larger, so that way there's movement on the upper portion of the caliper to get it away from the rotor. Because of the size of the rotor and the bracket design and everything, you still do need to modify the top section of the caliper here for clearancing. So that's why he slotted the upper hole to pull the top side away from the rotor, because if he drilled both holes to an M16, that puts the whole caliper closer to the rotor, top and bottom, so then he'll have to take out more material from both ends of the caliper. Pro tip, sort of, YouTube pro tip. YouTube certified pro tip. If they tell you, yeah, it fits, it doesn't fit. Guaranteed it won't fit. So figure it out yourself. On the back of your R34 Skyline, the majority of the rear knuckle setup really resembles the Z32 Nissan 300ZX that came out in the early 90s. The majority of the cars actually share that drum brake system, which is still shared today into the newer Z chassis. So the 350Z and the 370Z rear e-brake package is a drum package. Now, thankfully on the R34 GTT GTR, you could use a 370Z sport brake package, or their like Nismo brake package rotor has an internal drum on the rear rotor, and that fits exactly over the rear drum package of an R34 GTT or GTR. The brake package that we bought for the rear of the car is using the 4-piston CTSV caliper that you see here, which has been clearanced and modified as far as you can possibly go before getting into the walls of the pistons, because the bracket that comes for this car needs to be modified so that there's a slot that this has to fit between because of the knuckle design on the R34 and the Z32 and probably the 350, 370Zs. All right, on the back of the R34 GTT or GTR, if you want to run the 4-piston CTSV brake caliper along with the 14-inch Nismo 370Z Sport brake package rotor, you're able to do so with the bracket from, I don't know how to say it, we're going to put it up there somewhere, but in the instructions to his kit, it tells you exactly which rear brake lines to get from StopTech and how much you need to hollow out the rear 4-piston caliper because it needs to fit within the knuckle. The only gripe we have with the back section of this brake kit is the fact that we actually needed the caliper bracket to be slotted so that way you could better center and position the caliper perfectly on the rotor so that you have the perfect amount of pad contact onto the rotor. That's our only gripe with the rear. It was really straightforward. It told you exactly how much you needed clearance and why you needed to clearance it in the instructions. He actually has a whole video doing this on a Z32. And as I mentioned, the Z32 knuckle and rear drum brake package is extremely similar through 1990 all the way through 2002 because the R34 GTRs have the same rear brake package in the drums. All right, that's gonna conclude the tip on how to turn your RB25 DET into a twin turbo setup to more mimic what was in the original car of 2Fast 2Furious because that car had an actual RB26. We wanted to do it as close as possible, but we're doing it the budget way. Keep the RB25, go twin turbo, mimic the brakes, and if you guys are out there working on your R34 GTT or GTR, you can certainly do this brake setup. It gives you a 14-inch rotor front and back on a much better budget than trying to buy some endless brakes or R35 GTR brakes, or even trying to find a set of the old StopTech brake kit that was available back in the day. This is your best bet. Get the calipers. You can buy the calipers brand new or buy used ones, have them rebuilt and repowder coated whatever color you want. And as you can see, the car behind me is actually not black anymore. It is finally in silver. But more on that on the next episode. Thank you guys for checking this out. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to Just Driving, guys. This is a...
Okay, so
All right, so it's easier. All right, so fucking fuck you, Dan, you idiot, for making me think about it. All right, so you want to. Fucking idiot. Fuck you, Dan. He's Dan. That's Dan.
Stop
you.
flipping off the comment.
No, so this everybody knows who it's for. It's for him, not you. Him. Get out of my face. Damn it.
Zoom in on the gray hair.
They're gonna see all my imperfections.
He could be at the other side of the room.
You'll still see them.
Okay, so I'm just sitting here jibber jabbering. Just try that again.
What are you doing? Your stupid face. So you're interested in making your RB25 single turbo? Oh, you bitch. This bitch. God.
So sorry.
All right, so good, we can't use that clip. Step 3, acquire all the lines and stuff that you need.
Oh.
And then we just need to put the thingy. Put the thing, and then do the thing. And put the clamp and the thing. Bolt, gasket, thing, done.
Whatever you see something that I'm doing is because it's annoying and it's hard and it's, you know, people don't have patience to do it.
I don't want to do it. You want to... So clarification, the bottom hole in the knuckle, she's taking a jack for a walk.
You should have said, let me tell you how to do this breakup break. If you don't know how to do it,
Too much fun, dude.
if you don't know how to do it, you're a loser.
Dang. Go to the other side.
Make me.
Go.
You're filming? Yeah. You are filming.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, you are.
What are you talking about?
You are. I see wreck.
Wreck. I see your wreck.
Wreck!
He's understanding the language.
Motherfucker. Don't use that language to your parents. Get the fuck out of here. Can you let me film so I can go back to whatever the fuck I was not doing?
No, I go. You talking, I go.
Okay. Parking brake.